One.
Recording in progress.
Welcome back to That's Good Stuff. Tonight we are headed back across the West with Joel and Ellie as we review the first season of The Last of Us. And tonight we're doing episodes 7 and 8. Episode 7 is called Left Behind, or as I like to call it, Dojo's worst fears realized. So far, this is the highest, the most watched episode for the
Oh, wow.
series. The one before it was actually the highest until this one surpassed it. So, kind of on a roll right now. So, before we get to my sad feelings about this episode, I think I'll pass it over to Michael and he can talk about this one since he's kind of been the guy to tell us the scoops on like
the comparison guy.
Yeah,
Michael just sets it up and we knock it down.
What's going on between the game and the show? So go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. So I actually had to go, like, I basically skimmed through a playthrough of the DLC because I did not play it when the remake came out. So I haven't played the DLC since 2014. I have played it, but it's been, we're going on 10 years for that now, which is ridiculous. So I went back because I was like, there's some weird things because I was worried leading into this episode. So my overall thoughts of this episode are good episode. It went on. It went on too long for sure. It's difficult to say for me whether this should have been edited or not. I love the story and I love the backstory we get, but it's like one, especially with we already seen episode 8 now, so we know they have to wrap this up in one episode, and that's to build that up and to do all this in one episode. It's possible, but hopefully it's a long episode because this has been my worry. Because leading into this, I was like, okay, there are two things they can do here. One, they're gonna do it like the DLC, which in the DLC I think they should have done it like this. Was they bounced back and forth. So in the game, Ellie is, she has Joel. She takes him to the place, whatever, and then she's like, I gotta go find medicine because this dude's gonna die. So instead of in spoilers episode 8, she goes and barters for medicine. She goes out initially and finds an abandoned mall to try and find medicine out there. There's like a crashed helicopter inside. And they're like, maybe there's like a med kit on there or something. So it was her idea, whatever. And so it bounces back and forth between the combat of the game, which is how they get combat in the, DLC. It's not just a cutscene you're watching for DLC. And then you go back and you travel around with Riley and you kind of experience those really cool moments of you actually have the water gun fight they allude to in the show instead of just talking about it. So that's like your little fun game mechanic where you shoot each other in masks. You can try out all these different masks and everything, explore the thing. So I think that was a big weakness of the show of this episode because a lot of it dragged. Like they hung on scenes for a long time, and like I said, I feel like the shots and like the environment of this episode I loved so much, but it was just like we just spent too long on it. So my initial thing was like they need to either have this half the episode, and then half the episode is when they cut back to her and Joel, and then they go from there with Joel and her, and then they build from that, or they need to do the combat and split it throughout the thing to where there's actual like some sort of like rhythm to it. But it was just kind of like, hey, we're gonna kind of meander for a long time and not really go anywhere until the very end. So that's my kind of overarching things of it. So yeah, like, and that's basically, apart from that, it's pretty close to the game or the DLC from what I remember. Like I said, I just skimmed through a video. I didn't watch the whole thing, just trying to get a remembered idea of how it all kind of paced out. But yeah, it just kind of goes back and forth between Ellie like struggling to fight in this mall of just a bunch of dudes in there, and I think they're clickers and crap and everything she's having to deal with trying to find them the meds, and then bouncing to her, kind of reminiscing in that time of Riley, which is very interesting for it to be like a DLC after the game to try and put that in there. Because like in the initial game, you know Riley's name and you know that something happened back in the day. You literally don't know anything else about it. So it's like that kind of like should they have not have for, and seeming with Joseph they should not have for the show put that in there. But like I said, I did like the episode. I think the performances were really good. Especially Bella Ramsey at the end whenever she's like kind of emotionally reacting to it, and then I got something stuck in my throat. And just kind of like Riley's the contrast between their two reactions of her breaking things and smashing things, and then Riley kind of sitting there like, this is it. And then I couldn't remember. This was a very interesting for me because I couldn't remember if they showed Riley change. Because in my head canon, they did in the game. And I was like, oh, they didn't show it in the show. That's so strange. And I went back and they don't show it in the game. And so like in my head, I invented this scene of her changing and then Ellie never changed. I'm like, it's kind of like, that's kind of a cool, like I was trying to pin it down in my head today while I was at work. I was trying to think, I was like, Do I like that? Do I think they should have shown it? Because I like that kind of like play with your own imagination of what happens, and I apparently didn't. I completely convinced myself it was in the game. What's up, Thomas?
I haven't played the DLC in like I think like a decade. Like
Yeah.
you're saying, didn't they show like Riley like having like symptoms? But though
They
like,
didn't.
Her...
Like I literally,
Really?
I watched it today, and I like in my mind, I had it like
I
that
thought so
happened.
too. I
and
thought she had like was like going to transition into it, and then it's like left up to the imagination whether Ellie killed her or not.
yeah, because it like the ending kind of just zooms in on Ellie, and I was like, what the heck? Yeah, it just happened.
Yeah, that's weird. I thought
literally had
remembered
that in my head.
so-
Unless
Just to jump in, I've never seen the DLC or anything. But after I finished this, and like this week, when I was thinking back to this episode, I was like, "What the heck happened at the end? Did they? I know how did they end this?" So for me too, I was like, because I too thought, I'll get to it later, but I did think that it would have been more effective if they just did like the flashbacks, like you were saying.
yeah.
And I could have swore I could have sworn like maybe they just show her turned into a thing and she's like screaming. But yeah, for me, I couldn't remember how this episode ended. Like,
Yeah, so the episode ends just with them. She says that line, which is straight from the game. We're like, let's just be all poetic and go out together, like because they have the choice of either shoot themselves or change together, and they decide to change together, and that kind of just leaves it hanging there. So I'm looking at it literally right now.
What is the third option? Because she's like, or there's the third option. She's like, no.
I think she was saying like, or a third option, like kind of like jokingly begging for one. But yeah, and so it just ends on Ellie sitting here wiping her eyes, and then it cuts to credits. So yeah, and I don't know why. Like literally, as Thomas said, in my head canon, I had that picture where Riley changed and Ellie had to kill her because she wasn't changing. And like I feel like that's insinuated, and you can kind of pull it from that. That's what happened. But
yeah,
it's kind of weird to think.
It'd be weird to think about like how it happened, like in their world, like in real life. Like, what did they do? Just sit there, and then all of a sudden she changed and she shot her and whatever. So
yeah,
it's weird to think like how that would play out.
Yeah, very interesting. But yeah, the whole episode itself, like I said, there were fun parts, but it just it definitely dragged. I didn't realize how short it was because it was pretty short of an episode. And then, but just like certain scenes, like the escalator scene, which was charming at first, went on too long in my opinion. There were the scene, like the arcade scene went on, like just each scene. I feel like they had the idea to splice in these, Back to the Future moments where we're with Ellie struggling, but they just never put them in there or something. I don't know. It's like I feel like it would have been a great boon to the pacing of the episode because otherwise it's kind of like, okay, yeah, okay, we're getting somewhere, yeah. But yeah, and then you just kind of just see what's coming. You see the clicker on the wall. You're like, oh yeah, they're going to be attacked at some point, and then that clicker comes out. I did like the fight between them. I thought that was well done in that. And Ellie's kind of like, yes. And then I like the reaction of her, Riley's looking down, or whatever, and then she like sees her arm, and then just that kind of panic overwhelms. I feel like this episode and episode 8, Bella Ramsey just did an incredible job, in my opinion, for her performances. And then just the Riley, her lifts her hand and she's just bitten. It's just kind of like that. So I feel like this episode had a very strong ending, but the build up to it was, or really the middle, because I did like the intro a lot with her, kind of like Riley's gone for 3 weeks, she's getting bullied at school, and everyone's like, "Hey, you're protection here," and she's like, "I don't need protection." That kind of like the different look at the kind of Fedra people that I've never seen. You don't see in the game because that's not in the game. Like Riley's just there and she wakes you up and you go whatever. But that kind of like they're trying to like not what's the word I'm looking for?
Provoke?
Not provoke, no, like raise up, like he's trying to guide her. What's the word I'm looking for there? Oh my gosh.
Guide.
Oh,
oh
yeah.
Kind of,
Inspire?
but there's a P word though. There's a P word that I'm looking for. Anyway, I'll think of it.
Oh, I got a P word for you.
Whoa! But so I found that interesting, and that kind of like and the struggle between Riley and Ellie of, hey, Fedra are the bad guys. No, Fireflies are doing the bad things. Like, hey, they're both bad things. Which one are you going to choose? And I don't know. I like the progression episode, or like the points of the episode, but the progression I felt was slow. But so yeah, the differences from what I've gleamed skimming. But yeah, definitely, it was one I was interested in seeing because I didn't remember it like at all. So I didn't go back and look at the DLC until I watched after the episode. So it was interesting to go through it. But yeah, that's me.
Who wants to go next? Thomas?
Thomas?
Sure. This one was kind of boring. I think part of it is that we kind of already had a very heavily focused character episode, like with with Bill and his whole life and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting, is kind of refreshing, like a refreshing take on it. And I liked what they did with the character, but this one just seems kind of out of place and also way too long. Like, I think Michael was saying, like, he could have done this in flashbacks, like throughout the series, and probably would have worked a little better. It's because there's not a lot happening on this one day. They just kind of go there and just kind of hang out. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah, and it would have kept the tension so much more if they had flashback to
Right,
her
yeah.
struggling trying to find this medicine.
right.
Because it builds up that whole contrast, which is so strange not to do it. Sorry to interrupt, but that it's so strange not to do it because that's what the whole show has been going after is right, or Ellie has this kind of vendetta and this anger and this thing to prove because she's lost something. It's like what a better way to do it than to do how the game do it. In contrast, hey, you're losing someone now like you did back then, and she's fighting to try and do it. I don't know.
Mhm.
Frustrating.
So I don't have much to say about this one because this one didn't leave like any impact on me really at all. I think it's probably the weakest of the episodes in the season. I mean, like the acting when during when the clicker, not the clicker, but you know what I mean, comes in, that was interesting because that something is happening, and I like the cordyceps zombies. I think it's kind of cool, but I mean, it's just nothing happened. Nothing happened. I don't really feel too much for Riley because I really don't know her except for like the brief interaction that we had, because this is one day, and so I really don't know much about her. She's barely mentioned throughout the rest of the series, so I don't have anything to connect me with her. But yeah, this one wasn't for me. Apparently Neil Druckmann has a really big thing for freaking Pearl Jam though, so
He really does.
why?
The second game
Why?
proves that.
But why?
Me and Jared,
Because
me and
Eddie
Jared,
Vedder, you fool.
me and
Yes.
Jared were joking. We're like, why is Ellie dressed like Eddie Vedder?
'Cause he
It,
loves.
it takes the end of the world for Pearl Jam to become like the best rock band. So
I like when you're like, is Ellie just Jeremy? It's like
Yeah, Neil basically takes one of the Pearl Jam songs and it's the theme
I
of
know.
the second game, and they play it throughout the game. It's actually very emotional and
can't even play the
Makes
one
me very
Pearl
sad.
Jam song I like, and it's like, really, this one? Okay.
Sorry, I have to make one more funny joke we made about the whole Pearl Jam thing. Riley steals the Walkman and she's like, I replaced it with good music, STP. And Ellie's just like, no.
All right. Jared, go for it.
I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer right now because when this episode started, I was like, oh sweet God, no. And then they continued to do it, and I was like, and it felt like the longest episode out of all of these.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy, but man, kids. Their whole conversation was like, F this, F that.
I have
and
a question, Jared. Like when she's with like the Fedra principal, I guess, is that what he was? The overseer? He's like, you're obviously intelligent. I'm just like, I have nothing to base that on. Like, she's just kind of moody.
Okay,
Like-
so the very first part was kind of cool when she beats Becky up or whatever her name was. That reminded me of like Freaks and Geeks or something like that. But like whenever Riley appeared, it was like terrible. They're like, F this, F that, and I started making jokes like, I found this son of a bee gun over here and loaded it with some A bullets, and like it's just like how many curse words can you fit in one sentence?
It's like Shia LaBeouf cussing in iRobot.
And I love that because they acknowledged it. They're like, "You're
Right.
a kid, cut it out."
Yeah, stop it.
Forgot he's in iRobot.
Yeah.
Oh man,
He's a street kid.
true.
And I also don't want to be that guy. And I know Jolson wants to be, but there's
Don't
no
be
way
that
you're
guy.
there's
He
no
is
way you're,
that guy. What are you talking about?
there's no way you're learning fatalities in like a couple days.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
true. That's what
Thank
Colin
you.
on his podcast
Thank
was saying. He
you.
was like, I've never been able to do that. There's no way she does it first try. That doesn't happen.
Even with guides and like seeing it, I can't do it. So there's no way these these
I
kids are doing
practiced
it.
for hours to try to get fatalities in Mortal Kombat 11. It's not easy. I'm sorry, and like 2 is even harder because you have those stupid joysticks.
Yeah.
What I want to know is how does she know how to do the little coin search thing at the arcade?
Oh, I know.
She's
I
never
wondered
been
that
to
too.
an
I wondered
arcade.
that too. I was like,
I was like, Is
why would you do
like
that?
Just a human
Is it instinct?
inherited instinct, yeah, to do that coin thing.
Red 25-cent buddy.
Just like cavemen checking like knot holes for like coins. Like, oh,
and then when they go into that one store and they put on the masks and start dancing, I was like, is this gonna turn into Hotline Miami or whatever? It felt like that, like they're gonna get guns and go.
that'd be kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. And then I was like, man, I kind of want a show of that. But this episode was rough, dude. Definitely my least favorite. Not only because it was kid love, and we just had like this most beautiful love story with Frank and like what was his name? Bill. I was so touched by that love story. This one, I was like, just kill one of these kids, dude.
It was super forced. It was in the. I'm sorry. There's no way Riley would like her. They don't even agree philosophically.
Oh, and then how like embarrassed she was to kiss her. Like I feel like Ellie would just do it. Like just like come here, baby. she's very much that character. But
come here, baby.
Come here, baby.
I mean, Riley's a little likable, but Ellie's not likable at all. I don't. And then Riley's older than her, and it just doesn't make no sense to me at all.
It's a little creepy. I'm not.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a rough episode. Not my favorite. I'll let Joseph say some mean things about it.
Before he goes on.
I hate this episode, but I didn't actually feel that way until I saw episode 8, and then I really hated this.
Interesting.
Because I was like, we could have been here.
Yeah.
We're over here.
Yeah.
But Michael like said most of the stuff I was thinking. This just should have been cut up and put in there. They could have just started at the mall and put it in episode 8. I don't even think you need to see this. I mean, I didn't know it was DLC. I could totally see this with this show without this whole scene. To me, they did a good job throughout the season of her like dropping hints that she's lost someone, and she has a history that we don't see, and I think that's a ton more appealing than this episode that we got. And it's just baffling. It's like these guys saw like other shows and was like, oh, I want to do that, so we're gonna do that this episode. So just totally, I don't know, just bad storytelling season wise. The episode itself wasn't that bad. Like Michael said, it's not a bad episode. It's just unneeded, unnecessary,
bloated.
Yeah. Like Thomas said, it felt longer than it is. I didn't even realize it was a short episode.
Yeah.
But it's a short episode too, but it did not feel that way.
Yeah.
Did this end with her sewing up Joel?
Yes.
That would be miserable.
Which I think is actually the wrong thing to do. Also for a stab wound, I think that makes it worse.
I
know that can't be a clean needle.
Well, it creates like a pocket of air.
Oh yeah.
You create a cyst. I was just like, well, he's dead.
Yeah, you got to cauterize that stuff, but and then
I mean, she's a kid, I know, but still.
The only thing, last thing I would say, me and Jared just like made jokes about it the whole time. So I don't think that says well about your show if we're just making jokes about it the whole time. But
you would anyway, though.
True, we do joke. There's a part where it goes to Joel. It finally goes to Joel, and me and Jared are like, oh, finally we're back here, and then it goes back. And we're like, no. It just cut all the, like Michael said, it cuts all the tension from what happened between episode 6 and episode 8. And yeah, I just think it was a total failure of an episode. I do want to say real fast that they did reveal the episode length of the 8th one, and it's 43 minutes.
8 or 9?
9, sorry. The finale.
The finale's 43 minutes?
43 minutes.
That is not what I wanted to hear, Joseph.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Did they
much about-
lie? Did they lie on like to trick people? Is this a joke?
I don't
Michael's about to
know.
riot.
Well, I don't know how they're gonna do this then. 'cause
That
I
worries
mean,
me.
Yeah.
Back to
I
the
don't
mall,
know.
guys.
I actually know more about the second game story than the first game story, so I don't know how this first game ends at all.
A lot happens between like now and the ending of the game.
So that's what I'm assuming, because episode 8 that we'll go into right now is called When We Are in Need. And this episode I thought was very good. This is why I hated episode 7 after I watched this one, because this was like, yes, I mean, as soon as it started, it's like, yes, this is what I want. It gets into like a religious group, like what they're doing after the whole apocalypse. So you get a little philosophical, not much, you don't get much of it, but at least you get a thought about what happens to religion after. And then you find out some dark stuff, and then you find out a strange coincidence that Joel is the one who killed the guy that's in their group, so their group's kind of mad at him. And then so this was great. I like this episode. I thought the villain was great. Him and Ellie's like kind of conversation that they have in the cage. I thought that scene was really good. Like Michael said, her acting is really good in this episode. I think this is she feels like the most natural in this episode, because she's just kind of like trying to survive the whole time. Yeah, so I want to hear what you guys have to say, since I like this one. This might be my favorite one of this series so far. It's either that one or the one in Kansas City. So I don't know. Those two are really good. So who wants to go first this time?
I'll
No
go
one?
first since no one's talking.
Yeah, go,
Um, so this one's easily the best one for me. This is the first episode where it's like, this is what I want to see from Last of Us. How dark it can get, because it hasn't really been that dark to me. Besides the two brothers, but and it's cool seeing like Joseph was saying, the religious kind of group that would probably be around during this, and how this dude goes from like, okay, he's probably not that bad, to like, oh god.
yeah.
Was really cool. The reveal of what's going on in that group was pretty cool too. And then just seeing like Mad Joel, like actually like him pissed off, was really cool, and just taking out those guys. And then that whole interrogation scene was freaking awesome. When he's like having that guy point at the map, and then he's like, why did you kill him? And he's like, oh no, don't worry, I believed him. And then he just killed the other guy. I was like, man, that's some good Last of Us. That's some good Pedro Pascal. But no, I really like this episode. I'll probably chime in if I remember other things I was going to say about it. But Ellie, her performance was really good in this, especially just like after how traumatizing that experience was. And like, I don't know, she did a really good job in this episode, as opposed to like the last episode we just saw with the mall. I was like, man, that really did not need to be an episode. But no, I really like this episode, and I want to hear what Michael has to say about it.
Yeah. So this is probably, in my opinion, the most accurate episode we've had so far. This is almost 1-to-1 with the game, the whole thing. Starting with Ellie hunting the buck, though she's using a bow and arrow, which isn't in the show. She's using a bow and
They
arrow
haven't
and
used a
hunting it
bow and
down.
arrow once in this show.
Yeah,
which I think
true.
is a little weird.
It's kind of sad because I love the bow and arrow.
Because
But
it's so iconic in the game.
yeah, true. But she comes across David, who is like, it's hard to say. This guy might be creepier than he is in the game. They have this guy portrayed him and what he did, and they don't really. I don't remember if it's in like notes you find around that hints to religious stuff, but they don't do this. Like, there's not the scene where everyone's praying and stuff in the game, like, because it's all from Ellie and Joel's perspective, so they can't really do that. So I don't know if they added that in for the show, if I'm
I-
just not remembering the papers strewn about talking about them being religious group. I don't remember.
From what I remember, it was just like his charisma. From what I remember, because I
Yeah,
don't remember
probably.
any of the religious overtones at all.
I don't
I remember
either.
finding like the butchery, like horrific stuff, like Johnny was mentioning about like got like this many pounds of meat out of this person.
Yeah.
I remember that stuff, but I don't remember anything being overtly religious. I just thought it was just like him being basically like Charles Manson type thing.
Yeah, so I couldn't remember if that was in it or not, but apart from that, it's like basically same scene. We get our boy, the guy who actually played Joel in the game, Troy Baker, played James in the episode. I have hugged this man in real life, and I have a picture of him.
Don't put that on the internet, Michael.
Oh, I'll put it on the internet. He knows it. He loves it.
Troy just turned off the podcast.
Troy's like, oh, we're out.
Yeah.
Ah, crap. Creeper over here.
Was he kind of like the second man in charge?
Yeah, he was the guy that got the butcher knife in the neck. And I thought he did a great job with this kind of like mistrusting, kind of hesitant performance, the little that he was in it. But I loved him. The guy who played David was so good. So Nolan North, who plays, Nathan Drake in the Uncharted series, he played David in the game, and he does such a good job as well. So it's hard. Like, I'm like, ooh, both of you, I don't know. I kind of was like, I don't know if they can top Nolan, but this guy did a great job being a freaking creep.
Nolan.
Sure, they could have gotten Nolan, but so that's kind of that's 1-to-1. They make the deal for the like, I'll trade you the medicine for whatever. They trace her back to the house. That's all the same. She runs off with a horse. That's the same. Troy Baker isn't the one that shoots her, but she gets shot off the horse. But I like
Troy Baker, no.
I like that kind of addition of him doing it. But yeah, and like Joseph said, that scene with them in the cage where he's kind of like trying to woo her, and you realize how freaking messed up and dire this situation is and what she's in, and it's like, holy crap, this dude needs to freaking die. And then
that was a good scene because he kept talking more, and I was like, ugh, more every
yeah,
time he started
it was
talking. I was like, oh.
we had Corey and Becca ended up coming over last night, and Becca was like, no, no.
It's like she was trying to turn Anakin Skywalker or something.
But yeah, and then like you guys said, her performance there, like when she first sees the ear and she starts like trying to work it through her head and how to get through it, like, she did such a great job.
I'd be dumb. Like, I know myself at that age. I'd be like, oh, I wonder why there's an ear here.
Huh.
I wouldn't connect it.
I bet someone slipped and they cut it off, man. That's unfortunate. And then like Jared pointed out that scene where he interrogates them, and it was interesting that they did. I didn't think they were going to do this because they had the same kind of line whenever they met the older couple out in the wilderness. He was like, if you don't point to the same place she did, then I'm going to kill you, whatever. And so that line's, because they weren't in the game, that line was only in this scene, which is basically 1-to-1. And yeah, Jared's saying like that line where he goes up and he's like, it's okay, I believed him. And it's just bam, and it goes black, like exactly like the game. And I was like, yes, that part is just like Joel is unleashed and you're ready for it, dude.
Yeah.
And he's half dead, so you're like,
oh,
Jesus.
I know. You're like
Like a
that
wounded
first kill, whenever he kind of takes that dude out with the knife and he's just so he still has the wheezy breath. I'm like, oh my gosh, crap's about to go down. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
And then
and it was framed so perfectly. Like, the other guy just sees the blood on the floor,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
he sees his friend, and then he goes in the house, and he's like, oh, shit.
yeah, it was, oh man, this episode was so well directed. Then going into the same kind of Ellie, like literally, like I said, it's 1-to-1. Like they throw her on the table, they're gonna cut her up because she bites him or breaks his finger. She does, and then she ends up biting him. But he's throws the axe down. Then our poor boy Troy, poor boy Troy, that actually worked out. He gets taken out, and so R.I.P.
Stop
to him.
being creepy, Michael.
I was very happy when I saw Troy Baker, and apparently Ashley Johnson, she's in the season, so she must be in the last episode. Don't know who she plays.
So when they showed Troy Baker's character, I was like, why is this guy oddly attractive? I was like, this guy's looking too good.
He's a god among men.
for an apocalypse guy. I was like, why is he so?
Apocalypse guy.
Um,
that was quick thinking on Ellie's part. That whole thing about I was bitten.
yeah.
And even how he reacts to it's like, no, this doesn't add up too. That was really good too.
It's weird because every time I play the game or when I watch it, I forget how she gets out of that every single time. I don't know. I never remember. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what she does. And whenever she's like, no, I'm infected. And so seeing that again, and I was like, oh my gosh, duh, of course, how to forget. But and then you get to the final scene where they have the fight in like the I don't know, the gathering room, whatever you want to call it, the lobby of
steakhouse?
the lobby of the hotel
Yeah,
they're
it
in,
was
whatever.
a steakhouse, wasn't it?
It's
Yeah.
like they're in like a resort, and so it's like the
It
eating
says
diner
steakhouse
laundry.
right there.
Did they
Don't
steakhouse?
order the veal here.
But and so and that's kind of actually an annoying part of the game. The mechanics there aren't very fun to play because you got to go and stab him several times. So I was glad in the show they only stabbed him once, and they had that fight where it's yeah, just like ripped out of the game where she's crawling away, he pulls her over. Though more dialogue than in the freaking game where he's talking about how he likes the biting is his favorite part.
Oh.
I was like, oh my god, kill this man now. Like it's just that's where he's crossed over the line of Nolan North, and I'm like, this guy's freaking creeping me out. And just that impactful thing where she has to like brutally kill him, and even like compared to
and then when she got really into it,
that's what I was gonna say. Like compared to the game, like it's it's more than the game. Like that part is impactful in the game, and you're like, oh my gosh, holy crap, because she's just screaming, hitting the show. Bella just took it to like 12, man. It was so impactful to me. I was like, that is insane. And like the fire behind her. This is my one complaint about this episode, though. In the game, this is when Joel grabs her. She's swinging and swinging and swinging, and someone grabs from behind. You don't know who it is, and he grabs her, and she goes trying to hit him, and he's like, "It's me, it's me, it's me, it's me." And she's like, "Calm down, calm down, calm down." And I really wish they had done it that way.
Yeah.
It's so impactful because you're freaking out. You're like, "Crap, there's someone else here," because it doesn't show Joel in the slightest. Like you just see his shoulder, and they're wrestling for a little bit. Then you see him, and I feel like I was really that's the only disappointment I have with this episode is that moment she gets outside, and it's also that fact of like, hey, Joel was almost there. Like in the show, she gets out and she lives, but in that moment where she's swinging, it's like if she hadn't done that, Joel would he have gotten there in time? Kind of leaves that question lingering in the air. But instead of her getting outside, I like the game version better in that point. But Bella Ramsey's performance freaking incredible. And then Johnny pointed out, I didn't even notice this. They kind of show a scene where he's holding, and he says, "It's okay, baby," and it shows his watch. That's exactly what he said to Sarah when he's holding Sarah at the beginning, whenever she dies. And I was like, "Oh snap, that's painful."
That was my only problem with the episode too, is that I would have liked to see Joel like actually get in there and help her out. I mean, I don't mind that she's the one that killed him because he kind of deserves it. I mean, that's just good for the audience to see that she overcame the guy. But I really would have liked to see it like how you explained it, like he getting in there and pulling her off. That would have been really cool.
Yeah, because Joel does he takes out like basically the whole town on the way to him in the game. She's playing gameplay, but yeah, that was my only nitpick. Was I wish they had that tension, that one more step of tension of him tearing off. You don't know who it is, and then that really affects her a lot. So I don't know why they wouldn't have done that. I haven't listened to the podcast yet of them talking about it, but yeah, apart from that episode, I thought was perfect. It was great. Loved it. Go ahead, Thomas.
I don't know how to do this.
Do it. I believe in you.
I didn't like this episode.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think part of it is a personal preference, or I don't even know how to say it. I didn't like the writing in this at all. I didn't like the bad guy. That was a bit cliche, to be honest. I'm trying not to be like put my super feelings into this, because it's just even when I was watching the episode, I'm like, I really don't like this. I don't like any of this. And to not be too personal about it, I don't like the faith bashing, I guess is a weird way to say it. I'm trying not to be like overtly conservative and super like no blah blah blah. It's just the way
I feel you. I mean, I don't like when they like put, just because they're religious, they're automatically going to be the villain of it.
And that's the thing. Like even with like Ellie's like, you still believe in that? I'm just like, yeah, duh.
But I thought it was all right just because they turn it into something else. Like he says he's not really religious.
Yeah,
right.
he's just saying.
Uses it
and I kind of got some of that, but it's the whole like, he's a cult leader, he's a cannibal, he's a pedophile. It's like, okay, throw in Nazi and just like round out the whole thing. But I don't know. It's just the whole thing. I had a really bad feeling about it, and I just didn't feel comfortable. Even some of the conversations about the stuff, I was just like, I don't really like this at all. Like, I don't. The performances were good. Like, I think this is probably Bella Ramsey's like strongest performance out of the entire series so far. I think they wasted Troy Baker though, because come on, man, like a cameo, that's all you're gonna give him.
I kind of wish he had played David, honestly.
Either him or like maybe have him be like a Firefly, like in later series or something. I don't know. I feel like they wasted Troy Baker's talent just on the cameo.
But then you wouldn't love him if he played.
Yeah, true. I'd be like, no, get him, kill him, kill him, kill him.
No, Michael still love him. He's like, I'm doing this because I love you.
I can totally see his side of things now.
I don't know.
Whoa.
It comes off as like a personal thing for me, and I again, I'm trying not to be like overly like rah about it. It's just everything in this episode just didn't hit right for me, and I just didn't enjoy it like at all. Personally, it just comes off as someone who's very hurt, I guess, in the writing, because I can kind of tell that. And you know, I have my problems with, you know, organized religion. Like, good Lord, my religious background is freaking insane. But to me, it came off as a very unhappy writing. I don't know, like it didn't hit well with me. I didn't like it. I was a little, not saying disappointed, but I kind of want to see some more zombies in this movie, in this show. We've only seen like cordyceps zombies, like I think 1/4 of the time that we've like seen this entire show. And so I'm getting a little tired of the human enemies. Like, come on, like in the game, you're having to hide and kill these things all the time. And granted, you're having to hide and kill from real people too in the game. But I feel like that's all we've done this entire show is hide from people and not the zombies. So I'm getting a little tired of the human aspect of it. I want some more of the creatures. But I don't know. Again, I don't want to get too much into like my personal feelings about it. It's just I just didn't like this one at all. This is probably one of my lower episodes. And I know that's not everybody's feelings, and I completely understand it, and I understand their people's feelings toward what the show was trying to say. I didn't like it. So this is mine.
So what we know of what you the rest of you know about like The Last of Us part 1, do you think they'll just end it somewhere else than like try to do the rest of the game, or I don't
know. If you're saying that it's only going to be 40 something minutes, then I don't know how they're going to do it, because like even the video game itself does end kind of abruptly, but it ends on a very poetic ending, I guess you could say. It still has to be earned, and right now at the pace that they're going, it's not going to be earned. I don't know, Michael, what do you think?
That's my biggest thought right there, because yes, the last bit, which we are at the last bit of the game, like after you meet David, after you get away from David, it skips back to spring, and you're at the place where they've been going the whole time. That's where you're walking up to it, you're leading it. So that's where we are. There's a lot of gameplay in it, which they can cut out. But yeah, like Thomas said, to get the emotional weight that the game carries at the very end with the last line of the game, like he said, it ends abruptly. It's a lot with one line, it's done. To get that emotional weight in 43 minutes.
But that's, yeah, like it's an impactful line. And
that's going to be
it
very
ends,
hard.
Like very abruptly, but it's a very impactful ending. And like when we were playing the game, we didn't know that we were going to get a Last of Us 2. That was just going to be it.
Yeah.
And so even that ending by itself would have been a perfect, just like, huh. And so I don't know.
Yeah, there were rumors, before that they were going to lead into season, not lead into, but like maybe these rumors were fleshed out with that episode where they went to, you know, Jackson, and that you saw the town. Maybe that's what they were talking about with season 2 leading into it, because there's no way they can do that in the end of this episode. If it's 43 minutes, there's literally no way. So it's going to be, I feel like there's going to be a lot less action in this next episode. I feel like
it's weird.
It's very weird.
Last half of this, last part, like the last bit of this game, it's all action.
It's the lead up to the place, and there's a lot of freaking creatures you got to fight. Then it's in the place. There's a lot of the other stuff you got to fight. It's like, I'm very, very concerned now.
Montage time.
because this was my concern with having the Left Behind episode, because I was like, I feel like this finale needs 2 episodes. I feel like there's a point
Yeah.
you can stop perfectly, and then you can have one more episode. That's what there are
by the
2
way-
distinct parts of it. I feel like.
I hate that it's called Left Behind because every time I hear Left Behind, I think
Think
of
of
that,
the books.
of that freaking book series from like the 2000s. And I was like, or the Nicolas Cage movie. I was like, Left Behind, Left Behind, Left Behind. I'm like, is that getting a resurgence? Do I not know about this?
That's what happened when I Googled it to watch the gameplay of it. All of that came up. I was like, no, walkthrough gameplay.
The Rapture?
But
What?
yeah. So
I'll be disappointed
you've concerned me, Jared.
if
Joseph.
the leaders of the Fireflies aren't played by the cast of The Big Bang Theory. Just because this is how this series has gone. It's just been sitcom guys after sitcom.
Oh, okay. I was just like, what do you know that we don't? Like,
That would be funny. It's
The
just
last line is Bazinga.
it's just Michael Scott, Jim, and Dwight
I
up
was saying
there.
it's the cast
You're
of The
like,
Office. Yeah.
All right.
oh man.
So-
Yeah.
Newhart, or sorry, Bob Newhart shows up. So
It was just a dream.
it's just a dream.
All right. So, any last words on these 2 episodes before we go to the finale? Okay. So, we
No.
will see you next time for the finale. So, we're excited about that. Subscribe, get some notifications so you can get all that good stuff. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Pow, pow, pow.
Bye.